Welcome to the High Impact Man podcast. High impact men from across the nation sharing their stories of inspiration, encouragement, and hope.
Gosh, seek transformational relationships.
Now, what you're hearing from the culture is not right. Pick up the six, you know what I mean? But you never know who your six sometimes is.
Stop being less.
To help others become the virtuous leaders they're called to be and that our nation desperately needs.
Hello, all you people out there who listen to us. This is Neven Gorky. I'm known as Defib to the guys in F3, and this is the High Impact Man podcast. Coming to you with another episode, bringing a guest on to tell his story, to motivate, encourage, and inspire other men out there. So I hope you've tuned in and can get something out of this. I mean, we dial up and I do every time we sit down with our guests. It's a blessing for us to be able to do this. And I've just said his name, Troy Klinger, otherwise known as Dial Up, is my co-host. So Dial Up. We're off and running with another guest, and, they never fail to disappoint. This is another guest that's been recommended to us.
Yeah. Where does that come from? I can't remember. Recommendation-wise.
Test my memory that I just...
am I putting you on the spot?
Yeah, it came from McFly.
McFly.
Thanks for the recommendation, McFly. And this is another one that came through our website. So if anybody out there has somebody in mind that would be a good guest for us to be on the High Impact Man podcast, please... send it to our website. Get in touch with us. Let us know. Find me on Slack. Send me a message, whatever you want. But also, the other F3 podcasts, we're always looking for recommendations. So the stuff we're trying, guys, would appreciate recommendations there. And Bones and the Hunt for Wellness podcast would appreciate recommendations there. And, of course, always call into the COT podcast for Kitty and Rapido. Give us the news of the nation and what's going on in your region. There's my little plug for all of our F3 podcasts. But we are happy and blessed to have, and not... we don't take the responsibility lightly to maintain the culture and advance the mission of F3 out there by doing these podcasts. So there it is, my little commercial. And our guest today is Tootie. His real name is Nate Riddle. Okay, I'm going to read his bio as way of introduction because I can't do better than this. So he's 38 years old, was born and raised in Rockwood, Tennessee, where he currently resides, raising his 4 kids with 3 boys and 1 girl. He was in the Marine Corps for 2004 to 2012, Semper Fi. Getting medically retired in October 2012. He attended the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina, where he studied exercise science. After bouncing through several careers, he found himself back in Tennessee and he and his wife opened their first business in 2020 when they purchased a fitness facility. That business mindset has evolved into owning and operating several businesses while trying to maintain sanity in an ever-evolving family calendar. We know how that is. His hobbies are everywhere from reading personal and professional development books and to anime to jiu-jitsu and everything in between, including a big owl tattoo on his chest, which we talked about offline. You guys don't know about that, but you can see him. There he is. You see the wings of the owl.
It's good that we got video now.
Yeah, that's right. His only dislikes are soccer and cilantro because they both taste like soap. So, yeah, welcome to the podcast.
You're talking to 2 soccer coaches, retired soccer coaches, brother.
Ex-soccer coaches, yeah.
We won't take it personal, though. It's all good.
Listen, I would probably love soccer if it was something, but small town Tennessee, listen, we play the big 3, and that's it.
Yep. Yeah. Cross country, track, and field.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, it happened.
Just kidding.
All right. It happened to Dial Up and I the same way. We neither of us played soccer, but our kids got involved in soccer. Next thing you know, we're coaching. So.
Never even had it in high school, but
yeah. And I can tell you, for girls, soccer is like football for girls. Although girls are playing rugby now and stuff like that, but back then, soccer was like football for girls because they beat the snot out of each other out there. Girls are vicious, by the way. If all of you don't know that yet.
Oh, absolutely. The new thing for high school girls, they've just rolled it out here, is flag football. That's starting to become an official sport.
Yeah, I think it just passed in our state as well, that schools can start sponsoring it.
Well, if they play it the way we played flag football when I got out of college, or was in college and out of college, they better have an ambulance standing by because you could block. You can't tackle, but you could block. And
yeah. Well, that'd be dangerous in our county. We only have 3 ambulances, so yeah.
All right, have one on standby. All right, so this is the part of the broadcast where I could call it a broadcast now, right? This is a part of our broadcast where Dial-Up and I play Guess How Our F3 Guest Got His Name. His F3 name is Tootie, and forgive me in advance if I call you Tootsie at some point.
He'll beat you up later.
That slipped earlier today. Obviously, we weren't recording, but yeah, we're doing Tootsie. No, wait, it's Tootie. All right, so dial up. You already told you what my guess was going to be. I think Tootie was tootin' at one of his first beatdown. What we call that? Is it called that an Elvis? Is that what that's called? Or no, that's having to have a poop in the middle of the
Yeah, that's when he got
workout.
to poop in the middle of a workout.
Yeah, I think he was crop dusting out there during his first
You think
beatdown.
that's what it was?
He got
That
Tootie,
seems that seems pretty obvious, and I was going to go that route as well. But you know what? I'll let you. That if you're right, I'll just let you have all the solo glory of getting it right, and I got it wrong. I'm going to say it just has something to do with just tattoos, and somehow it became Tootie.
Oh, wow.
That's a good guess.
Yeah,
That one's deep in there. You're both absolutely incorrect.
yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that Defib's wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, so the evening before I got plugged into F3, I had been out to Walmart. I've got 3 teenage boys, and we were walking around, and we were in like the toy section looking at something. And I rounded a corner, and there was a buggy behind me, and I was like, that's my kids. And I just let one rip. And I turned, and I looked back, and I said, that's a good one. And it was no one from my family. It was a woman and her son, and I just man. And so I didn't get the heads up that hey, when we do this, when we close this thing up on your first day and you're an FNG, you get like one good story to tell. Pick a good one.
Yeah.
Instead, somebody was like, "Hey, what's the most embarrassing thing that's happened to you?" Like, let me tell you about last night. And boom, Tootie was born.
There it is.
There you go, Tootie. You got to embrace it, right?
Yeah. It's a terrible nickname, and I just lean into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why not?
There are worse, believe me.
You were on the
there
right track,
are.
Defib, just the wrong location.
Yeah,
Huh?
yeah.
Oh, yeah. He was tooting. All right, a Walmart toot.
Yep.
A woot. All right. Well, tell us your F3 origin story before I make any stupid puns again.
I was going to say something stupid about Walmart.
We have been, I'm part of F3 Roco. We're coming up on our 1-year anniversary as our standalone AO. And so about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, maybe, I just got invited. Some guys at the gym where we work out and everything. They said, hey, you need to come check this out. And they invited me, and I showed up and went. I'd love to tell you it was a really deep origin story, but that was it. It was a few guys branched out from Knoxville down to us, and we just kind of jumped in. Initially, it was a little weird coming from the Marine Corps. It has a lot of those military elements, side straddle hops, things like that. So once I kind of worked through that, we hit the road running.
Yeah, cool. All right, so we want to talk about your experience in the Marine Corps too, but let's start back where you grew up and stuff like that. What was life like for you when you were a little Tootie?
Oh, man. This is small town Tennessee life. If you have ever driven, I don't know if you guys have ever driven through Tennessee or anything like that. Have either one of you?
Parts of it, yeah.
Okay.
My daughter currently lives in Nashville, so my wife and I were just down there in June.
Okay. So if you're driving Nashville to Knoxville, you take Interstate 40. You'll go from Central Time to Eastern Time.
Right. I think we took that to Gatlinburg.
Yes. You would have taken it to Gatlinburg.
Yep.
All right. Right when you come off the mountain and you change from Central to Eastern Time, you get little old Rockwood, Tennessee.
Oh.
Nice.
Yeah. We're the town. We're not quite the town that the world forgot. We don't have an interstate exit. We're the only one in the county that doesn't, and we definitely feel the impacts of it. I graduated with a whopping 52 individuals in my graduating class. When I say we played the big three, all we played was the big three.
Right.
That's it. We've thankfully evolved, and they've got soccer. We don't have lacrosse yet. We don't have any form of cross country. We don't have wrestling, any of those things, but we're getting there. We're working to get there. So this is, go ahead.
I was going to say, with the class, what did you say, 53? 57?
Yeah, 52. Yeah,
52. I was wrong on both counts. 52. That you need almost everybody to play to have a football team.
You got to have everybody, man.
Yeah.
I mean, single A. It's a small town. A few years ago, to tell you how small we were, a few years ago, I was coaching my youngest son in football, and we had 11 kids. You guys know how many you need to play?
Yeah.
11.
Yeah, because if you got 52, you're graduating with 52, that's probably only 26 or around 26 are boys. So, wow.
Yeah. So smaller single A school.
Yeah.
Here in Rockwood, mom was a teacher. Dad was in sales for a long, long time. Most of his life, he bounced between like car sales and worked for Caterpillar selling some heavy equipment and got to do a few cool things like that. And that was life here in Roane County. I grew up Southern Baptist, going to the same church that I could attend now. I thought it was the big church in town. We had
Right.
on our Cheester days, our Christmas and Easter, we would get almost 300 people in that place.
Wow.
And it was like, wow, this is a big church. I laugh
Yeah.
about that because when we got stationed in Charleston, South Carolina, we attended a place called East Cooper Baptist, and they pushed about 4,200 people through on our first Sunday.
Right.
And I was sitting there going like, oh man. But yeah, that was life here in East Tennessee. I've got an older brother and an older sister, but I am so much significantly younger than them that I basically had the only child experience where they got to come in and go, man, mom and dad never let me do that. So yeah,
Okay. And
that was it.
You played all three sports, the big three: football, basketball, baseball.
So I played basketball up until high school, and I never played football until my sophomore year. Baseball was my thing. That's what I played. I got the opportunity to play baseball in college after a few years in the Marine Corps, and so I did that. That was my thing. Picked up football and basketball. I just never did anything with at all.
Yeah.
I look back and I'm like, maybe that would have been cool, but I don't feel like I missed the boat on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, did you go in the Marine Corps right out of high school?
So we have a local community college that a lot of people attend. We call it Roane County High School because of the 5 high schools we have here in this county, you're probably going to see 50% of those seniors all together in one location taking community college classes.
Mm-hmm.
So I went there and I majored in all things music, anything I could do related to music. I believed in the sex, drugs, and rock and roll lifestyle, but I was a single dude that played country music and was too scared to try any kind of drugs. So you can see that career path just didn't work out for me. So after what I would consider the lowest GPA on record at Roane State Community College, I decided, man, I have to figure something out with my life before mom and dad know what's going on.
Yeah.
Right.
My dad was in the Air Force back in the 70s. So on a Saturday, I went to join the Air Force. Well, the Air Force office was closed. The Marine Corps
Right.
office was open.
Yeah.
And I wasn't smart enough to take that as a hint that the Air Force doesn't work on Saturdays. So I walked into this guy's office on a Saturday. Monday morning, I was at MEPS swearing in. The following Sunday, which was the day after Christmas, I was on a bus headed to Paris Island. My family got
wow.
a 7-day notice.
Wow.
That is incredible. So, I mentioned in the last podcast and before, I listen to a lot of Jocko's podcast, and, he was a Navy SEAL, but he had a lot of military guys on there, and he does basically what we do. He did it first, I think. But anyway, how guys tell their story like this. And so many guys ended up in the Navy and become a Navy SEAL with that same thing. They went like, the recruiters' offices are always next to each other, and one was closed or, something like that. And some other guy sees him, is like, hey, come on over here. And
Yeah.
next thing you know, instead of Air Force, you're a Marine. That must be quite a culture shock going from small town Tennessee, and a week later, you're in Paris Island.
Oh, man. You talk about a culture shock. I was so unprepared to go to Marine Corps boot camp that on day 3, when they handed me a rifle, I was like, whoa, we get this already? What's going on? Like I was not prepared at all. Thankfully, I had been working out a lot. And so in terms of physical fitness, I was already, I won't say well qualified, but I was qualified enough for them to break me down and build me back up. But it was a definite culture shock.
Did ever do any hunting or growing up?
I did a very small amount of hunting growing up and just got used to it. But thankfully, I don't know if you guys have ever seen anything about Marine Corps boot camp. There's a lot of these really polite gentlemen that are ready to just encourage you
Yes.
and get you moving in the right direction.
Gentle
Right.
and loving. Yeah.
Yeah. One of my favorite things is there was an old retired Marine that dropped us off at Paris Island. You can only arrive at night. You hear all those stories. There was a bus with 10 of us on this little mini bus, if you will, kind of church van, 12-seater.
Yeah.
And this guy rolls up at like 9:30 at night. Our heads are down. And all of a sudden he opens the door and he goes, hey, good luck. And we never saw that guy again. To this day, I still don't know where he went. The van could still be there for all I know. I just know that there was a guy that welcomed us to Paris Island at a volume that I had never heard before.
Right. Shock treatment, baby.
Yeah, it worked.
Yeah, I went through Army boot camp, and that was the same thing. We got off the bus, and they just screaming at you. And now we're carrying a duffel bag that is carrying more stuff in that bag than is allowed by the laws of physics. I don't know how it happened, but then you got to take everything out, and I'm there just in your face the whole time. That's dial up. You experienced that a little bit in the Grow Ruck. They try to mimic that.
Yeah.
In the Grow Ruck you did, in the welcoming party, I think they call it.
They set it up for failure.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
There's no way you're going to succeed initially.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, but that's part of the training program, though, is that they set it up for failure and they give you these unachievable things. I don't know how Army boot camp was. For Marine Corps boot camp, the drill instructors like to count you down on things.
Oh, of course.
And their method of counting is very similar to my kindergartner learning how to count. You got 15 seconds to put your shoes on, and they'll go 15, 14, 7, 3, 2, and you're like, I'm just going to stop because I don't even have a sock on right now. I'm just going to stand at attention. I'll let you tell me that I'm wrong, and I'll change shoes with the guy next door to me, and you'll just you're going to pick on us for a little while. I get it.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. Same thing.
And every March, it's just you're finished in half a mile, right?
Yeah.
You're done in half a mile. You're done in half a mile.
Right there.
Yeah.
It's right there. It's right there.
6 miles later.
They never told us. Like we would run. We would do PT in the morning, and we would do the calisthenics or whatever you want to call it, and then we would run, but we would run in formation. But never. I don't remember them ever telling us how far we were going, or how far we went. You just ran till you were done, and but the time went by fast because I was in reasonably good shape at 18 years old, going there and playing basketball and stuff. So I wasn't in too bad a shape to run. I wasn't a distance runner, but that wasn't too bad. But it went by fast because you're running in cadence. You're trying to land on the left foot. The whole thing, and so it went by quickly for me. But so in Marine boot camp, you have to go through what's called the Crucible.
The Crucible, yeah.
At the end, yeah.
54 or 58 hours, only a few meals. And I'm not downplaying the Crucible by any means. At the time, it's very hard. Defib, I think you'll agree, having been in the Army. At the time, when you get entry-level training, it feels like this incredible mountain. But looking back, once you get out in the fleet, you kind of realize, that kind of was a protected environment. They only had limited resources of what they could do to us. They have a very strict schedule. And they want us to succeed. So while it is tough, it's probably not the hardest thing you've ever done, but at that point in time in life, it definitely is the hardest thing you've ever done.
Yeah.
So it's the Crucible, and the Crucible finishes with what they call the Warrior's Breakfast. At least it did when I went through. It's where they march you back to the chow hall and you get a chance to have steak, eggs, cake. A drill instructor is going to leave you alone. And you get a chance just to get the biggest stomach ache that you have ever had in your entire life. And no one is going to tell you no. Right. And so you just keep going because you're like, I've earned this. I'll eat 4 pieces of cake, even though I haven't had sugar in 3 months.
Right.
And so, yeah.
Yeah, we didn't have that. We had a 15-mile road march at the end. That was our big test with full, ruck and all that stuff. But and I know it was more than 15. They let out that was like 20 miles. I don't know how far we went, but it wasn't the Crucible. It was, we left early in the morning, bivouacked somewhere out in the field, and then we left early in the morning and got back somewhere around early afternoon or something like that. But yeah. we didn't do something called the Crucible. But anyway, that's cool. What'd you do in the Marines? What was your job?
So I was a heavy equipment engineer. I played with bulldozers and things of that nature. It sounds exceptionally cool. I didn't do it very long at all. I got sent to a unit that needed more admin than they needed combat engineers that had heavy equipment. We didn't even own a piece of heavy equipment. So I got reclassified as an admin guy. They sent me back to school for that. And then after about a year and a half in the admin field, I decided, man, if I want to hang out in the gun club, I want to do something a little bit different. My ambition was to stay in and retire out. And so I was already taking some classes and wanted to get a degree. So to get a degree, I get to become an officer. And my end goal in life was to be a captain. I wanted to be a captain in the Marine Corps. And it was for one reason and one reason only. The coolest people you've ever met in your life were captains. Captain America, Captain Kangaroo, Captain Caveman, Captain Crunch. Captain is the rank to get.
Yeah.
Captain Caveman. All right. That's Tuttle.
Captain Total.
Yeah.
Captain Total,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, so I applied for an officer program. I got accepted into that officer program. That sent me to the Naval Academy Prep School for a little while. So I was
Mhm.
there for 6 months. That's where I got to play some college baseball for them. And then I had to choose a school of my choice as long as they had a Navy ROTC that the
Mhm.
Marine Corps could assign me to occasionally teach a little class every now and then. But basically, just your job is to go to school.
Right.
So had a few different schools I was looking at, and our instructor from the Citadel came up to Rhode Island, gave us a class about, hey, the Citadel is going to give you a tuition break, and you're in Charleston, and you get all this. And my in-laws lived in Charleston, South Carolina at the time, so the Citadel it was.
How'd you like it at the Citadel?
Oh, it was just a school to me. It's a beautiful campus. I have to be careful when I say that. There are men and women out there that have attended the Citadel that are very, very passionate about the Citadel.
Right.
It was just a school to me.
Yeah.
I wore a Marine Corps uniform. I never got treated any way. Nobody ever talked down to me. I showed up and went to class and went home and hung out with my family. That
Yeah.
was it.
Oh. Nobody invited
You
you
know.
into any of the secret clubs, the
Yeah, no, none of that stuff.
none of that
Didn't
stuff?
even get a
Yeah.
ring for it.
All
You know,
right.
if you know
well,
anything about the Citadel, the ring is their thing.
Yeah.
Didn't even get a ring for it.
Uh,
But I loved it. It also made us fall in love with the city of Charleston. That place
Yeah.
feels like it speaks to my soul. I don't know if either one of you have ever been there, but it's a beautiful, beautiful place.
Yeah, I spent, let's say this past July, I spent a half a day in Charleston. I was supposed to go to a
Mm.
conference there, and I arrived just as the hurricane was coming through. It was the one before Helene. I forget what the name of
Okay.
it, but it dumped a boatload of water onto Charleston. And I was Ubering from the airport to the hotel where the conference was, and the guy said, "Our streets flood, in normal times. All the roads were gonna be closed." So it's a long story. I didn't get any sleep for a day and a half because of delayed flights and stuff like that. So I got there, ate, had a 2-hour nap, came back, realized that the roads were closing, and my flight that I was supposed to catch in 3 days at the end of the conference probably wasn't going to leave. So I just went back to the airport and flew home and did the conference by Zoom. So I know it sounds like a stupid story, but yeah, sometimes I do stupid things.
Doesn't sound like it counts like visiting Charleston.
No, I know.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
never actually saw downtown Charleston, which I was
But
looking
I've heard-
forward to.
Yeah, I've heard it's beautiful though. I have never been there, but I'd love to visit sometime.
It's beautiful. The food's amazing. The culture is great. Cost of living is a little bit expensive, but it's awesome. History, very deep in history. So if that's your
Yeah.
thing, my wife loves history. I'm kind of for it, but yeah, beautiful area.
Yeah,
Is
my
Charleston
wife
have-
was going to go with me, but she didn't because of the hurricane. She was smart.
Does Charleston have like a big pirate history or something like that? Did I
So
hear that?
Blackbeard was there at one point in time,
Okay.
and if I remember correctly, is buried there. I could be wrong,
Mm.
but I think he is buried there, or somebody from his crew. There's a tie-in to that.
Okay.
They call Charleston the Holy City, and so it's churches everywhere, deep in history. The Civil War started down there at Fort Sumter,
Right.
so you can go out and check that out.
Yeah.
The British
Just-
took it over
yeah.
during the Revolution.
Mhm.
So they took Charleston, until we beat 'em,
Charlestown.
but- Oh, that was different?
No, that it was
Oh, right,
Charlestown, and then
Charlestown,
it's just
right.
over time. Yeah.
Right, Charleston.
Charleston.
Right, yeah, exactly. All right, so you're at the Citadel. You're still in the Marine Corps. Then what?
So I'm at the Citadel, still in the Marine Corps. Everything I've done at this point in time has been stateside. I've done no deployments. I did search and rescue after Hurricane Katrina, and then Ike that hung out behind it down in Slidell and Picayune, Lafayette, things like that. Did the same thing when the tornadoes came through Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and Holt, Alabama. Did search and rescue for those things. And just as the Lord was having, we were moving in the right direction and playing in an Army-Navy flag football game. I take a wrong step and I tear my MCL for the second time in an 8-year career. And because of where I was in my career path, wasn't taking up boat space, wasn't out in the fleet, was waiting to go to the basic school and get a commission and do these things. And yeah, Navy medicine just kind of says, hey, we're going to med board you. Instead of pushing this forward, we think, your knee's gone twice in an 8-year period. I'll never forget the doctor walking in and handing me this piece of paper and me saying, are you serious? Like, I think it's going to be good. We're just going to repair it and we'll move on. And they said, listen, it's going to go again at some point in time. It could go tomorrow or it could go on top of a hill in Afghanistan. And
Right.
we just don't take those risks. So we're going to put you up for a med board. So about 8 months later, that med board came back and found me unfit for duty, which blew my mind because I was back to running by that point in time. I had done all the physical therapy, all the repair. So we appealed it, and our appeal just it went nowhere because of where we were transitionally in our career.
Yeah.
We weren't doing anything necessarily to advance the Marine Corps. We weren't in a deploying unit. I was just a dude that was taking classes that had finished classes. And
Yeah. You
so,
say, go ahead. I'm
go
sorry.
ahead. No,
Well, you
go.
you say were you married at this time?
I was, yeah, I
Yeah.
was
Okay.
married and we had 3 children at that point in time. Two,
Okay.
sorry. We were expecting our third at the very end of this. And so
Was your wife in the Marine Corps?
she was not, no, she was
Okay.
a stay-at-home mom. She had the harder of the two jobs at the time.
Right.
And so it was figuring those things out. And we had to figure out, here we were in 2012 thinking, man, we've made it to this point. We've gotten accepted into these programs, and the officer program, when I went to it and applied for it, I was told, hey, don't put a lot of thought into this, don't put a lot of hope into this. A lot of Marine Corps programs, they want you to apply more than once because they want to see how serious you are at it, and there's going to be a lot of really qualified people come at it. I think I had only had like 12 college credits at that point in time, so there were going to be people in the 60s, 70s, 80s applying to this and showing their transcripts. Also, one of the things that you needed to apply to this program was you needed to graduate in your top 10% of your class. When you got 52 people, but there's only 5 people that are in that top
Right.
10%,
Right.
and that's it. And I graduated, like a respectable 12, 13,
Mm-hmm.
something like that.
Yeah.
You know, not a bad student, but nowhere close to the top 10%. And so we're getting all these little waivers, and as God would have it, man, we get accepted into it. And stuff just kept happening like that for us, where God would step in and we would go, okay, this is his will. We're moving in that direction. We're going to be doing this. This dream that I've had of providing through my family by being an officer in the gun club is going to come true. I'm going to get a chance to do these things. And during the officer program, a lot of people talk about what they want to do as an officer. And 8 out of 10 dudes are like, I want to be a grunt officer. It's like they hang out and watch the movie Platoon all day and are like, yeah, that's it. I,
Yeah.
I want that We Were Soldiers moment. That wasn't me. I was like, I've already done admin. I want to be an adjutant. I want to be the guy that's working his way up the chain on the political side, that's making actual policies that are changing your day-to-day life for fellow Marines. And the only way to get there is to be an adjutant. Nobody wants that job, but dude, I'll take that in a heartbeat. Excuse me. And so, yeah, we get med boarded out and we are stuck going, I've got a degree in exercise science. Not a lot of places hire exercise science degrees, by the way. It's like a builder degree. You need it for something else.
Yeah.
Right. I know a
And
guy like that.
Yeah. You're talking to a fellow
yeah,
exercise science guy. Yeah. I went on to get my
yeah.
master's, which helped then that I was able to
See,
work in like a
you get
in
your
a
master's, you can
yeah.
go get your CSCS, and then you get a little bit of a life with it.
Yeah.
I would later on, a few years after getting out, I would use it as a building block to apply for PT school, PharmD school, PA
Yep.
school,
Mhm.
all of those things. But to circle back, we'll get to that in a second. To circle back to where we were, it's 2012. We've got a kid on the way. We've just bought our first house in Summerville, South Carolina. We've been medically retired out, and I am working a retail job at Dick's Sporting Goods, making the best of life of just like, okay, this is it. We're rocking and rolling. And we lived that life for 8, 9 months, maybe closer to 10. There's one key small little detail in there. I started doing a side job for this company that's no longer around that did government contracting. And I had a little bit of experience with government stuff. The same day I started, another guy named Brandon Bowers started. And Brandon sits at the desk right beside me. There are 7 people in this company, right? So obviously I'm going to know the guy right beside me. And he's like, hey, we just moved to Charleston to plant a church. I'm like, well, I know about churches. I was raised Southern Baptist. You know, we go to this church. How do you plant a church? What is that? What is this phrase? What are you doing? So my wife and I and my children were the first people involved in this church plant called Awaken in Charleston, South Carolina. And so we got to start doing ministry on the ground level. And I developed a passion for ministry at that point in time and was heavily plugged in with what we were doing. Back to the conversation of being at Dick's Sporting Goods, I had felt like I was called to ministry. And so I had thrown my resume out on the Southern Baptist Convention website. Just stuck it out there to see what would happen. One night at about 9 p.m., I get a phone call. It was 8 p.m. where they were located in Middle Tennessee from this little church that says, hey, we just saw your resume. Can we pay for you and your family to come out for a weekend? We'd like to interview you to be our youth pastor. And so I'm sitting there thinking like, ooh, what? I'll never forget that moment. I get off the phone with that guy and just immediately cried.
Oh.
Just like an immediate overwhelm of, man, I don't have an identity in this. God hasn't destined me to sell bikes to people for the rest of my life, right? We haven't got here to do that. And there was a lot of hurt that had happened at that time as well, because guys, I had a dream and I was right there. I mean, I was touching that dream. I had done all the hard stuff, the degree, the OCS, everything was done. And a flag football game, it goes away like that.
Yeah.
So we come home here in Rockwood to drop our dog off and then go spend a weekend with this church in Middle Tennessee, and had a great weekend with them. Ultimately, they don't end up choosing me. There's 3 people that they interview over a little bit, and in God's will, it just wasn't the right timing. But it opened our eyes to, ooh, maybe there's something there. So we spent the entire week here in Roane County in Rockwood with my mom and dad. And we started looking around going, we're part of a church that's drastically different than what I see here. The energy just hadn't gotten here yet. You know, where we are, it's, do you guys like the movie, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Roane County is the geographical oddity, right?
Yeah.
It's 2 weeks from everywhere.
Yeah.
So if you guys get something right now, it's going to be 10 plus years before we see any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just how our culture is. It's a little bit slower pace of life. We're not good at change. We have a ton of just really good-hearted men and women. Also, being in the South, we have a church every half mile.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just part of it. And at the time, I had the thought when we were sitting on the back porch, thinking about us being a part of this church plant that we had watched go from 13 people to 500 people in a year. We were thinking, man, we need that here. We need relational ministry that's ugly and on the ground level, that's small group based, that's pouring into this, that's reaching out and meeting people where they are, which I believe is the intent of all ministries, at least when they're first founded, right?
Mhm.
And so we moved back here, and I start coaching wrestling for a local Christian academy, and I start as a PT tech. And for 18 months, I did that. A local church reached out one day, asked me to be their youth pastor. And I was like, cool, this is it. God's calling me to ministry. I'm finally in it. Gentlemen, that was the worst year of my life.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it was bad. Not for me, for my bride.
Yeah.
It was the hardest year. And that's when I learned that, you know, I think we always hear about spiritual warfare and we hear about the enemy's attacks. But if you want to split the family, that's the quickest way to get somebody out.
Yeah.
And so when you lay somebody down, like my wife, she had 5 surgeries in that 1 year.
Oh boy.
2 of those 5 surgeries were miscarriages, and we had never had a miscarriage prior to that. and a miscarriage. I don't cry very often, but it's like 93 degrees in this room, so occasionally my eyes will sweat when I talk about this. Um, I think all men kind of feel this to a degree. There's a hopelessness when you have a loss like that.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, the church, even now, doesn't know how to respond. We just don't have the words to say, and rightfully so, because when loss like that happens, there just aren't words to say. There's just nothing good that you can say that brings comfort, that brings peace. All of those things are found through Christ. But in that moment, you know who you're mad at? I mean, you're mad at God. You're upset. Like, I can't believe this happened the first time. And here we are 3 months later, and dude, it's happening again. Are you serious?
You hear your wife weep.
Yeah,
It's just such
yeah.
agony, and you
It
can't
it
help
is.
her. It just crushes you.
Oh man,
Yeah,
it's the weight that you can't describe, and it is so different than the weight that your wife feels.
yeah,
And it is such a touchy subject for a lot of men because we have to understand that it happened to you too. Physically, it didn't happen to you,
right.
but emotionally, it happened to you. But also, part of your role is to be that rock and anchor to the person that it physically happened to.
Yeah,
And we had 3 kids at the time too. So life just doesn't stop. You don't get a
right.
chance just to, hey, we'll take a week off and recover from a miscarriage. It was, hey, I'm going to take the kids to school tomorrow morning once you sleep in a little bit. And the bills still have to get paid.
Right.
And so we struggled for that year at that church, and that church meant well with every ounce they had. And I stood up on a Sunday morning and said, guys, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. My wife's mental health was in shambles. Mine was chasing it. And my wife had asked me, hey, I want to go back to Charleston so that we can heal. I need to be there. And I said, okay. Um, and I moved back to Charleston a few months earlier, got a job selling outdoor billboards with a company called Adams Outdoor. My wife stayed, finished out the school year, and came down in May. And that was in May of 2016. So at this point in time, I've done physical therapy. I've applied to PharmD school, PT school, PA school. I got accepted into all of those things and didn't attend any of them because it was during the very first election for Trump. And I was watching my clinic directors panic about their quality of life because healthcare is one of the things that all election cycles talk about. And I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to put 3 or 4 years into this and not be able to treat people the right way. I had already seen patients that had total knee replacements that needed weeks of therapy, and their insurance was like, we'll give you 5 visits.
Okay.
You're like, all right. That's not really the heart of helping people. So I moved back to Charleston, selling billboards and hanging out at my in-laws until my family moves down there. One Monday morning, I roll into a meeting at Adams Outdoor. We had more meetings than anybody ever needed in their life down there. It was like somebody read the book on how to
Yeah.
hold a meeting, and they were like, "We have to do this one today. This is the way." So I'm sitting in a meeting. It's 8 a.m. and the sales manager comes in, and if you envision an angry sales manager, whatever you're thinking right now is exactly what happened. And this dude just starts screaming, and he is losing his mind screaming. And he's hitting stuff. He flips a chair over. When he finishes his, what I call adult temper tantrum, and we are excused from the meeting, I walked straight to my desk. I printed my resume, and I drove to a real estate company. And I walked in and said, I would like to interview. And they were waiting on a guy that had no called, no showed their interview. I slid right into that interview, went to the longest interview process that I had ever done on the spot. And a few weeks later, I was working in real estate. And so I spent about 100 days attending night school and making phone calls and writing essays and building this pipeline to be in real estate. And that was it. I jumped in. I started selling, and it was amazing. I sold 43 homes my first year.
Awesome.
Loved it. yeah, had a blast with it. Towards the end of it, my mental health started catching up to me, a little depression of things that I hadn't dealt with, of having two miscarriages and things like growing up in a small town and not necessarily learning the great communication skills that I needed. And so, yeah, we were making a ton of money. I was seeing my family very, very little. That was adding to it because if you guys want to buy a house, if your spouses work, you're probably going to buy it in the evening or on the weekends.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, that's when you want to look at it.
It's a tough part of the gig.
Yeah, that's the tough part of it. And so here I was with 3 kids at the time, 3 young boys, and going, oh, all I'm doing is making money. That's it. And my mental health took a severe nosedive. And to be very vulnerable for other men to build from this, there was a Thursday morning. It was just a rough morning. I remember driving over the Ravenel Bridge in Charleston and thinking like, I'm done. I don't want to do this. I'm making money, but it's just money. I don't have a purpose. I don't have an identity. You know, I felt like I was playing into that old adage that men's value are in what they can provide, not as a person. So I pulled to the bottom side of the bridge. You guys know where this story's going. I shot my wife a text message and I shot a buddy a text message at the time. And I said, hey, I'm sorry. Demons are too loud. I've got to go. And that was it. Wife calls, I ignore it. Buddy calls, I ignore it. Buddy calls back. Wife's calling back. I ended up answering the buddy's phone call. And he's like, hey, listen, I'm 5 minutes away. I'll be right there. If you want to do it, fine. But let me come get your wallet and keys and stuff from you so that you don't have to get the car towed. You don't want to put that on your wife. And I'm like, that's a good idea, you know? So he wasn't 5 minutes away. He was like 15, but still, 5 is 5. So he rolls up and he's like, man, I can't let you climb the bridge. Can't let you do this. Jump in, come with me. He drives me downtown to the VA hospital in Charleston. Instead of putting me in the emergency room, he goes upstairs to the 3rd floor where mental health is. And he sits down and he goes, hey, this Marine's going to see somebody and he's going to see somebody today. And the dude got me care like that.
Mhm.
And it started
Was
this
he an
long
ex-Marine
road.
as well?
He was an Air Force guy.
Okay.
He was an Air Force guy that had dealt with some similar things that I had seen. And ultimately, what I learned through this amazing therapy called EMDR is I learned that my body was keeping a score of anxiety and depression of things that I had seen during disaster relief and search and rescue. Because after a few days, there's no such thing as search and rescue. It's just search, unfortunately. And I had encountered those things, and in my mind, they didn't bother me. I could share all the details with you guys right now, and it wouldn't take a single minute of sleep from me. Not in a bad way, but just it's a life experience. It happens. We build off of it. But my body was different. My body, there's this amazing book called The Body Keeps the Score that I would recommend for anybody that has any like physical anxiety, depression style systems, so you can understand that you filed something in a different way. And so I did this amazing therapy called EMDR, and it was like I could see in HD again. And so after doing that, we moved back here. We finish up therapy here, and we initially moved back here to finish therapy, but also get closer to family again. Because now at this point in time, we moved to Charleston while my wife is in crisis. Now I am in crisis. So we need to get back where I've got support. And where do I get support? Back by the mountains here in East Tennessee, where I've had the same best friend for 24 years that I talk to on a daily basis. You know, that type of stuff, to get plugged in with family and get that support. So 2019, we moved back here. Pandemic hits in 2020. I had enrolled. I needed something to do with my time, needed a career. I had decided I've still got the GI Bill, so barber school was what I was going to do. So I started barber school January 8th, 2020. The pandemic hits and the barber school goes virtual. If you guys can envision.
How do you practice barbering virtually?
How do you do that? Right.
Honey, sit down. I got to practice on your hair.
Yeah. And full respect to the school, they had no clue that it was coming, so they didn't have
Right.
anything planned and in
Sure.
place. And so there were like 24 barber students on a Zoom call every single day trying to figure life out. And you're like, ah. So I end up just dropping out of that thing. Like, I just put everything on hold. I don't know what's happened with this pandemic. It was May. We put it on hold. Well, the gym that I had been working out at is the oldest gym in our county. The lady that owns it or owned it was 83 years old. And she said, hey, I was going to give it to my grandson. He doesn't want it. Do you want to buy it? And I'd love to buy it, but there's a pandemic going on and I don't have any income to make an extra business purchase or do anything like that. I don't have any experience. And she just, every issue that came up, God knocked it down. Like, I ran the numbers one day and I thought I can only pay this. Okay. She took that. Well, I can only pay this with a down payment and monthly payments. Okay. Yeah. And it just boom, 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 boom. So September 1st, 2020, terrible time to open up a gym because gyms are closing.
Right.
We open up our first business. We change the name from Fuel and Fitness to Roco Fitness. And we look at the books, and there are 72 members on the books. Of that, 41 of them are paying every month.
Uh-huh.
And man, it is, here we are. We're sitting.
Bought it
Coming up
before you
on
looked at the books?
I looked at the books, but when you're excited about something, those numbers are bigger than what you think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you're not writing that check out at that point in time. And so you're like, this could work and this could work and I could cut this one. There's a cleaning crew. I'll clean on my own and save this and we'll cut that. And you just get excited about the numbers and you make it work, at least in your mind. So we are now sitting, it is, October, about to be November of 2024. Our gym has a little over 400 members. And it's rocking and rolling. It's expanded from just the gym to where now we have a martial arts facility attached to the gym. So we do kids classes, adults classes, kickboxing, grappling, all that fun stuff. And that just led into other business ventures. And that's when I decided, oh man, God's designed me to be a serial entrepreneur, to think about things in a different way. And so now I spend my days doing what I call skill acquisition. What can I do to get a little bit better in this, while also knowing that God's called my heart to ministry. And at some point in time, he's going to go, hey, every single one of these little skills that you have, we're going to encompass this entire thing together. And you're going to see the purpose of it then. But for now, you're going to kind of run some circles every now and then. And that'll be it. And that's kind of the gist of where we are sitting right now, minus a few other things that we have going on.
Cool, man. All right. So that's quite a story. I mean, you got it.
Oh, yeah. I
did a
told you
lot
a
of
ton.
different
Sorry.
jobs, man.
That's all
okay.
good. No.
Did a lot of jobs. So you're a gym owner now, and life has settled down for you, and you're involved with F3. How often do you post?
So typically I post 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and then our Saturday beatdown.
Are they mostly boot camp stuff?
It is. It's all boot camp stuff. I do a little bit of ruck stuff, and I have been playing around with getting back into running. And so we've talked about, we do some running OTBs every now and then, but it's mostly beatdowns.
Yeah. How's your knee?
It's okay. I don't have any issues with it. Then that's the thing I think that still kind of upsets you a little bit from time to time. And you're like, I don't have any, knock on wood, I don't have any residual pain from it. I've been doing jujitsu now post injury for 14 years and haven't had any issues with it or anything like that.
Yeah. Nice.
Isn't there a bit of irony in you owning a gym and you go to a free workout group?
Yeah. And it's always a little bit of a stickler, because if you guys will see, sometimes we'll post like an F3 graphic and it'll talk about saving money over your, like, you'll save this much a year.
Right.
And I'm always kind of sitting in the background like, that's how I feed my family.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Just let it go. But one of the really cool things about it is I own a gym. And because I own a gym, there's days when I'll cue a beat down and I'll put tractor tires from the gym in the bed of my truck and take them out, and we'll have tractor tires and sledgehammers or slam balls or kettlebells or
Right.
the cool part, 3 weeks ago I queued a beat down and we call them murder bikes. They're assault bikes.
Uh-huh.
I took
Like-
those out there and that was a station.
Yeah.
Cool.
Just go out and get after it. So that
Like
part's really cool to introduce men to different styles of working out and to vary up a little bit. We don't have a ton of resources in terms of our AOs, like they don't have pull-up bars or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we're kind of just doing the classic body weight, CMU, just crushing it that way. So it's really cool to be able to vary that up from time to time.
Nice. All right. So where are you now mentally?
Oh man, I am, let's see, if 100% was great, I think most days I wake up at about 98 and then it drips down into the 80s and kind of goes from there. Being a small business owner, I tell my wife every day is when you wake up and how am I going to get my nose broke today so I can fix it again for tomorrow morning. And that's just, you learn to take the punches and roll with them. And I mean, mental health outside of that is good. What that taught me more than anything else, though, and one thing that has just been laid on my heart that I always make sure I try to do with other men is it taught me that, man, I could have raised the flag long before I ever got to that stage.
Sure.
And the fear is that we're going to get some sort of judgment. In reality, what happens is we hear the two strongest words in the English language, which is another man comes up to you and goes, "Me too."
Yeah.
And that's when you go, "Oh, man." And then you just relax everything. And I didn't have to get to that point. And so now I'm very open about it. Recently, I posted in Slack, guys, not coming to the beatdown today. I just need to take a mental health day. And I needed to just turn my phone off, get the kids to school, go take a walk in the park, grab some coffee and stuff with my wife, and just have a day where I didn't have any responsibilities. And just, I needed that reset. The past life of me would have been like, oh, don't listen to that dude. Go make money. And that's how one bad day becomes 5 bad days, becomes 50 bad days, as opposed to just waving the flag and going, hey, something's a little off in my neighborhood. I'm going to take a day. And that's the biggest thing that I've learned to implement through my trials with mental health.
How much has F3 helped you in regards to your mental health?
A ton. An absolute ton. The guys in F3, accountability wise, it's amazing. They're going to hold you to that HC if you're hitting that HC, right? Absolutely going to hold you to it. But more than that, if you're not hitting that HC, somebody's going to reach out. Hey, man, what's going on? Hadn't seen you in a minute. Hey, what's this? I've also learned, as much as I don't want to get up and get in the gloom, my body and mind is designed to get up in the morning, get an hour of exercise in, get time in the Word, get prayer, and get food. If I do those 4 things to start my day before my children ever wake up, my family moves forward exponentially better than the days where I just assume I'll get those 4 things in throughout the day.
Yeah, I hear you, man. That's same thing with me. And
Spot on.
the days that I don't do it, I feel, it isn't too often that I don't do something like that. But the days that I do, I'm like, man, I wish I'd have got up early and did it earlier. Because sometimes you just don't get around to it. Whether it's getting your workout in or doing the reading or studying or whatever you got to do.
The excuse list grows throughout the day.
Right. Yeah.
All
Not
day.
doing those
Plus,
things.
plus,
Yeah.
in the evenings, I'm just tired.
Yeah.
I'm just,
Right.
beat. The morning is when I got the most energy and can really get after it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I have to get the mornings. We have an evening beatdown that goes at 7:30, and I've snagged it a few times, and every time I snag it, I cannot go to sleep afterwards. I get cranked up too much. It works for some dudes, man. I am so happy it works for them. I went and proctored the Iron Packs for them one day and just got to enjoy that. But yeah, I can't do the evening. It has to be first thing in the morning.
Yeah. Dial-up doesn't stop sweating for a few hours, so he can't do that.
Oh, listen, Heavy sweater.
Yeah.
All right,
You
we call
got
that
it.
hyperhidrosis in the
Yeah.
medical field.
Mater might sweat more than me, but I'm not sure.
He's a big sweater.
Yeah. But
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, and I often
always
I don't
said
know
it's 'cause I'm
why.
healthy.
And the
That's right.
CO when we come together to ball a man to pray, I frequently end up between both of them.
Mm.
It's an
like
experience.
Now, the good part, I know you guys were talking about jujitsu. When you're a heavy sweater in jujitsu, that's
Yeah.
an immediate advantage.
right? Yeah,
Right.
huge
Yeah.
advantage.
Makes you slippery. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the old grease pig, and then also because I'm a heavy sweater, it's going to drip off of my
Yeah,
face if
nobody
I'm in
likes
a
to
top
touch that.
position.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you can get, kind of line the faces up and you can aim your sweat right,
Right into the
guys will
eyes.
start like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody wants that.
It drips. That's how it drips off me.
yeah.
Oh my lord! All right. Well, Dalip, you got any other questions for him?
I don't think so. Great story, man. What just a path that you were on, through life, and it's just neat to hear. I often say to folks, it's okay if your path through life is not straight, and for most guys it's not. Man, yours was every which direction, but it sounds like God's got you where He wants you, and you're accepting that, and you're listening to Him, and thriving now.
That's the goal with it anyway. I used to feel I was raised in church, from the time I was little up until now. And I used to always feel bad when people would be like, "Hey, what's your testimony?" Because guys, you'll hear testimonies of people that God has just rescued them from the worst situations you can think of, right? And they're like, "Well, what's my testimony?" Well, my mom and dad loved me and I fell in love with Jesus when I was 7 at a pew.
Yeah.
That's my testimony.
Yeah.
But when I have moments like this, I'm like, "No, dude, that's your testimony, right? Like that's it right now." And even in how God's still calling me to ministry, and I don't know what that looks like. In a past life before I was mentally healthy, if I felt a call to ministry, it was always a head thing. It was, hey, we got to go out and get in this right now. Anything worth doing is worth overdoing. The time for the gospel is now. And now it's a heart thing of, hey, be patient, sit still,
Yeah.
keep learning. You may be learning business stuff right now because you're learning how to balance the books of stuff.
Right.
Because one day God may go, "Hey, I need you to be an executive pastor at a church where you're not in a speaking role, but I need you to know all these tax things that you've done for your business, and I need you to know how to manage that, and I need you to know how to really be respectful and honor the opportunity you're given financially." Or maybe it's lease writing in the future because of the businesses we have. And it's so many different things. One of the main businesses we have right now is we've opened up a store in Westtown Mall in Knoxville, and we sell patriotic and faith-based apparel, which in this economy and time is a tough sell to a lot of people. But it's stuff that we are buying from vendors like Grunt Style, Nine Line, those types, but also stuff that I'm now sitting at a computer and learning how to do graphic design.
Yeah.
And I've taught myself how to do Adobe Illustrator. Am I good at it? No, but it's skill acquisition.
Yeah.
There's a stack of shirts that just came in today from the printer, and all 7 of those shirts were shirts that I designed from start to finish that I know nothing about. I am not a graphic designer. I want to tell you how to deadlift. I don't want to tell you about t-shirts.
Yeah.
But that's the season of life God's got me in, and I can't wait to see how He utilizes that in the future, if not for one small thing that He goes, "Hey, we're going to have a Saturday night men's group. We need a logo for it. What's that going to look like?"
There you go.
And,
Yeah.
so I don't know what it's going to look like, but yeah, I appreciate you acknowledging the up, down, sideways of that, and you bringing it up really points out and solidifies to me that, that all of that is my testimony. It's not the 7-year-old kid that gave his heart to Jesus then. It's the 38-year-old man that's been kind of drugged through a little bit and is still going, man, God is still good.
Yeah. The other
Amen.
part of that I wanted to ask you, how old are your kids now?
So we are 17, 15, 13, and the sneak attack 5-year-old girl.
Yeah.
So I have a senior in high school
Yeah.
and a kindergartner at the same time.
Yeah. I was guessing that was about how old the older kids were. And
Yeah.
and the reason I ask is like it's probably been just great for them. It'd be and maybe you have asked them, it'd be probably really cool to hear their perspective of this journey that they've seen their dad on.
Yeah.
And
Man, that one
probably some inspiration that it's provided.
Yeah.
But also it's probably some learning as to I don't want to repeat some things, right?
Yeah. That thought got me immediately in the emotions, man.
Yeah.
I've just I know my kids have seen grit. I know that they've seen determination. I know that they've seen the things that a man should put forward, but my hope and prayer is that they've also seen communication. They've seen love.
Yeah.
That they've felt that. And more importantly, man, if this entire thing falls apart tomorrow and we lose every business we have and everything goes crashing, listen, 3 out of my 4 kids, I've had the opportunity to baptize and they know the Lord.
Awesome.
It doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah.
You know
what
that
else they'll
box
see?
is checked.
You know what else they'll see? This podcast.
Yeah.
You just told your story, and it's out there, for posterity.
Yeah, it's really cool. My I won't get deep into my kids or anything like that, but my 17-year-old, he is about to fight in his second amateur kickboxing fight, and so it's cool to get to corner him.
Yeah,
15-year-old's deep into baseball. 13-year-old plays any sport that he that he can be a part of from start to finish. He's asked about rugby recently. And then my daughter rules the roost, man. She just she does everything that we need to do.
Wrapped around the pinky.
Yeah, she's 5. I haven't told her no yet. My wife keeps saying it's a problem, but I don't know what she's talking about.
Right.
I got a 24-year-old one of those that my wife tells me that she's got me. She got me. Wrapped around her finger. Doesn't change.
All right. Well, appreciate all that stuff, man. Every guy's got a story, and that's quite a story. So
Absolutely.
Appreciate you sharing it. I do have 2 more questions for you.
Yeah, man, go.
The first one is, if you were to pick somebody who you'd say is an inspiration or hero that you look up to or whatever, could be somebody from the distant past, somebody alive now, it doesn't matter. Who would you pick?
Oh man, this is a really, really interesting one. And it's interesting because I recently made a dream board, if you will, the vision board that you do every year. But I did one for people that I appreciated characteristics of what they did. Now, whether the person, good person, bad person, stuff like Barack Obama, man, I don't care about his politics. That dude could give a speech.
Yeah.
Period. Elon Musk, visionary across the board. Francis Scott Key, just all of these. So if I had to narrow it down to one absolute person, I'm going to go with none of the people that I just mentioned at all that are on my vision board.
Of course not.
At all. None of them at all. I'm going to go with one of my best friends in life. His name's Webb. He lives in Charleston, South Carolina. I'm not going to tell his story. It's his story to tell, very similar to mine. And he is just, dude, when you think of a dad that is plugged in with his children, and you think of a guy that is serving his church, that's him. And so every time we talk, even though he's just a few years older than me, I'm like, dude, you're such an inspiration for just everything you have, honor, integrity, communication, how you seek the Lord first in everything that you do, whether it's punishing your children, whether it's business, like everything you do is inspirational to me. And so that would be it.
It's the guy, Webb. All right.
Cool.
Shout out to Webb. All right. Last thing is, this is your chance to speak to men of America. What's your message for the men of America?
A message for men of America. Now is the time to return to being men. And I have to unpack that just a little bit, but we've all heard this saying that, what is it? Hard times make hard men, soft times make soft men make hard times. We're in that soft men, hard times right now. We are so divisive as a country with everything we have going on politically. We can argue galore about stuff, but there was a time when when men were men and they would sit down and have conversations like this. And we could disagree and be men. There were a time when men sought after the gospel. Eh, Guys, there was a time. We read in the word, there were 12 dudes that followed Jesus. All 12 of them had a bad time. 11 of them voluntarily had a bad time. Where's that? How do we get to that level of being men to have courage to do those things? How do we reach out? How do we communicate? How do we love? How do we learn to become better men? Now is the time for us to do that. Now is the time for us to reach down and define what a successful man does for the gospel, for his family, for his country, and return to those roots. Because there was a time when men didn't argue about politics, where they said, "Hey, I've got to go grab a rifle and defend this thing." There was a time when men built churches, and none of this is to say that women don't do any of those things. They absolutely do. But speaking to men specifically, there was a time when men went to schools and had breakfast with their family. There was a time when men could be seen at parks, when men could be seen at little league games, when men could be seen at practices. There was a time when men carried the backbone role of the families, of the churches, of the nation. We've got to get back to those times. In whatever 1% that looks like, whatever that challenge is, we have to start getting 1% better at that aspect of it.
Amen, brother. All right.
Yep.
Thank you. Appreciate you telling your story today, brother, and giving us your time. So
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Thanks for having me on. It came out of the blue. McFly didn't tell me anything about it.
Yeah, well, you could go and thank him now. Thanks, McFly,
absolutely.
for the recommendation.
Yeah, just great message through all that, and definitely, we prayed before we went live here, and the goal is to bring inspiration, hope, encouragement to men that are out there listening to this, and your closing words there and speaking to those men of America is spot on. It's calling us to be the men that we're called to be.
Yeah.
Amen. All right. Well, God bless you, brother. If I'm ever driving down Route 40, I'll stop by.
Yeah. Shoot me a message on Slack, guys.
All right, buddy.
Sounds
Take
good.
care.
All right,
Take
see
care.
you. Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.